Austin is a very racist city, right? Very transphobic in many different ways, and also UT, as I said, is not in a vacuum, and it also reproduced that kind of absence of bodies like mine within this university. So, at the same time that I feel very embraced in certain environments, most of the time I feel unsafe, right? And it's not unsafe only about my body being, perceived as disposable and target of violence, of physical violence, which may happen, right? But not safe because of the sense of comfort, right? I think safety has also a lot to do with a sense of well-being that is not achieved when you're stared at, when you have your name denied, when you're misgendered, or when you're the only one in the university. So
It is that for me, Austin and UT have been actually life-giving. And I don't say that lightly. When I came to the US and I moved to Austin, I experienced a lot of microaggressions, a lot of daily actions, like daily experiences of violence. But I also experienced so much reaffirmation and community and welcoming, and a place that something magic happened for me where I was able to actually name, this is who I am, this is who I want to be. And I started a full-time job as Sebastian. I started identifying publicly as Sebastian in Austin. So in some ways, Austin is my birthplace.
As a cisgender person on this campus and in this city, and as a white cisgender person, I experience a lot of privilege, and I see how that privilege operates. So a cisgender person is someone whose gender identity or innermost sense of our gender is the same as the gender we were assigned at birth. And most often, usually, it's also a cisgender person is someone for whom, when people assume what gender we are, it is the same as our gender identity. So we can expect that people will not misgender us with pronouns, that they will use the name that we tell them our name is, that we won't get asked violent questions about our gender identity, and that we'll have access to a lot of spaces on campus.
So bureaucracy here is almost a shield for people really not to recognize what they're doing. It's kind of a way to absolve themselves of responsibility for not changing or not taking more appropriate action.
Oh yeah, here and as far as any other institution that I've been here. So, yeah.
I think systemic and institutional oppression is pervasive everywhere, and I agree. It's usually it's natural for when the system is being challenged to some of the responses be, oh, one person did it wrong, or it was one person's fault, or this department does it right, this department doesn't do it right. But it's a general experience that I think, for me as a mental health provider, it calls attention to access to mental health services and the work that CMAC is doing to avoid participating in that kind of institutional or discriminatory practice of, if a person is seeking help and comes to CMAC, they prefer name what they use. And I hope I can assure you that, I can assure the students that at CMAC, you are recognized by the name that you prefer and the pronouns that you prefer. We are in a historical context of dramatic change, and we have a history behind us where a lot of these things were not happening. And again, it's not a person's fault, it's a systemic process. And we are right now, I think, living a revolutionary time of change. When you were talking about gender neutral restrooms in about, I think it was 2002, as a community member, I participated in an initiative to get a gender neutral restroom at the gym at UT, and it was a big thing as a trans person, that you're walking on eggshells, you're walking into our building feeling scared. We are aware of that, and we're doing our best. I'm there as a trans identified person. I was hired from an institution that openly knew since the day I applied that I'm a trans man. And that for me is a symbol of change, is a symbol of we are walking towards inclusion. Things are not perfect, things are not where they ought to be. That's part of the constant change. I hear your experience, and I think it is very, very important that we keep having these forums, we continue this dialogue. But I also worry that it is important to have that message that when we need help, we should be able to seek for it. And at least I can speak for CMHC is open and welcoming.
And well, and so talking about change and specifically about pronouns, that, you know, the use of correct pronouns, the identifying what pronouns you would like to be referred with, that has been, it's been in the news, certainly. It's been a growing issue that people are, you know, paying more attention to. You've all been in Austin and at UT for a good amount of time. Have you seen progress towards this becoming more widespread in the classroom? What, if anything, do you think needs to happen to make that more widespread, that specific issue? Yeah, anyone is welcome to chime in on that.
You know, I haven't been part of particularly the UT community for a long time, but my experience, again, it's like people are starting to, you know, when I was here for my first week receiving emails as part of my job, pretty much every of the signatures included preferred pronoun identification, and it was pretty widespread. And I saw that, and I was like, good, okay. And it's an act of education. I think it's a way of making people aware of their own gender. So I think it's important also to bring perspective to the fact that these are not things that we are doing just for trans folks. That what we do to be inclusive and to be inclusive of gender experience and gender identity and trans folks like me and like Dora, we are talking about also your own inclusion and your own capacity to be yourself. So I think it is important when we talk about trans rights and trans advocacy and inclusion in campus, for me as a trans person to tell the system that whenever we talk about changes and inclusion and embracing, we are also talking about a process of liberation for everybody. It's not a process of liberation only for trans people. When I am more comfortable as a student or as a provider being myself, that creates space for you to be able to be yourself. So I think many times we create a divide of, are people open to this or not? Are we moving towards that or not? Is this good for trans people? And for me, it's like, are we moving as a society? Are we moving as a community towards a space of inclusion that includes you?
Or be a place of not anxiety around it. And I don't believe that we can, at this point, we will have a place in which there is no anxiety. No, yes, it is totally a hassle to do that kind of thing. And yeah, so
I think you're bringing up such an important point around the emotions and the triggering experience of these daily things. So gender pronoun as a particular, are we moving towards that? And then you're bringing up, there is anxiety attached to that experience. There is and for trans people, even when we're moving towards inclusion, the fact that we have to sit in the room with that tension in the air, the fact that somebody may then start apologizing and questioning and going back and forth, is what we identify in mental health as microaggressions. And again, as a mental health provider, for me it's important to talk about what is the implication, while we live in this time of change and inclusion, what is the implication for the trans student who is living it every day, who is going through it, and who's living with that anxiety. And, you know, for a cisgender person, okay, it was uncomfortable to identify my gender pronouns during that meeting, and then I went to class. For a trans person, it was, wow, two people misgender me, and now I don't even feel like going to class.
so when I come to these spaces, I don't have the expectation that it's not going to be problematic, or that I'm not going to be interpreted as like the angry black trans woman, or, you know, like, oh, you're never satisfied. I'm not, yes. I'm not. I think it's too little to have one trans man, right, within as the working, right, in that space. I think it's too little to have one forum or transgender days, right, in which we have certain trans things. Like, I think until we have a time in which that is like organically or within the system, it's not going to be enough. So I know that I'm not going to be here to see that.
And I think it is important to recognize that as allies, which I expect everybody in this room is in some way trying and working towards that place of allyship, to recognize that it comes with discomfort, and that I expect all of you to tolerate, be, and dwell in that discomfort, because that discomfort is part of changing, and to not expect me to tolerate at a higher level than you.